morning. Welcome. I want to encourage you during this session. I talked to Steve beforehand, and he promised that he would be on the app answering questions afterwards for any questions that we didn't have time to answer. So please use the app. If we have time to answer them during the session, we will. Otherwise, we'll have them afterwards. Please welcome Steve King, Product Manager from Atlassian.
Hey, everyone. So as Dan said, I'm Steve King. I'm one of the product managers on the server platform for Atlassian. And you've heard in the last couple of days that we've been talking a lot about how we want you guys to go out and build amazing things and to have your teams build amazing things. Well, I know how important it is to use tools that just get out of your users' way so that they can just get on with doing what they need to do. At Atlassian, we've spent the last 10 years building software to help our users. And it needs to be flexible. We built an ecosystem in the P2 and in Connect, and it exploded with functionality. And we implemented Data Center, and that's been helping administrators who need to address scalability through demand on load to meet the demanding deployment environments that they need to deploy into as they transition from physical hardware to private cloud. And also to meet the demands of distributed teams, which is increasing. You've also heard that we've been talking a lot about teams in the last 2 days, but I actually want to start by saying thank you to all of you. Inside your organizations, you are the face of our products. So I want to start by saying thank you for being the product champions inside your organization. Thank you for helping us build better products by providing feedback, by participating in interviews, and by asking for new features on the Atlassian website. And thanks for hanging in there through the bugs and through the upgrade issues. We know we've failed you a few times and that you are really the face of those problems inside your organization. But at least in my book, I think you're all champions, so I just wanted to say thank you. Today, I'm going to talk about how we're making the experience of administering and maintaining our products easier. And Doctor Who. Who here is familiar with Doctor Who? Good. Well, for those who aren't, Doctor Who is a space and time traveling alien. A Time Lord, in fact. And he, in his many iterations, travels through all of space and time. And he does this in his TARDIS. What is a TARDIS? Well, this is a TARDIS. A TARDIS is a sentient, time-traveling spaceship. But it looks like a quaint and simple police phone box. If you had never seen it before, it would appear completely insignificant. It's not until you're inside the TARDIS that you can start to see the complexity that powers this very complicated machine. It can travel through all of space and time. It has a labyrinth of rooms that carries the many things that the Doctor acquires along the way. And it can carry many passengers. It's continually adapting to the needs of its environment and the needs of its passengers. Inside the TARDIS, it looks complicated, because it is. But on the outside, it still looks like a quaint and simple police phone box. You're looking at something that appears simple and gives the impression of simplicity, regardless of how complicated it is or what it's able to accomplish. In our case, team dynamics and the way they work inside organizations are inherently complex. And the aim of our tools is to bring simplicity to this by providing highly configurable products that address this complexity in the most simple way. And when we do this, you can start to see the simplicity of what we do on the far side of its complexity. And thanks to this quote by Oliver Wendell Holmes, our design and product teams are continually working to bring simplicity to every aspect of the products that we build. Like the doctor, who may be the only person who can fully appreciate the complexity of the TARDIS, you as administrators may really be the only people inside your organization who fully appreciate the complexity of the products and how they work. But your end users and our end users will almost always only ever see the simplicity of using the product without ever seeing the complexity of maintaining workflows and configuring everything from the start. So, how do we help solve complexity issues in administration without impacting on the simplicity that users feel on the front end? Well, this is where I come in. I'm here to help. My job at Atlassian is to constantly improve the experiences that you have as administrators. I'm dedicated to the experiences around installation, upgrade, and extending our products. And your experiences are constantly top of mind for me and my team. We've done a lot of interviews, and we've done a lot of research, and we've had a lot of administrators participate in this and help us prototype and think about our ideas. And we have a lot of tools to help us do this along the way, but one of the ones that I love the most is, as you saw, telling stories. I use the Atlassian personas, and then I create a character around that best represents our customers and the needs that they have. And then I write a story. I think back to the complex stories when I was younger and complex scenarios that were, difficult to understand. And I remember that regardless of how complicated a scenario was, as long as you had a really compelling story, it made it easier to understand and sell an idea. Destroy a moon-sized spaceship with a single laser blast? Well, of course you could do that. The story matters. The story helps you empathize with the end user, the scenario they're in, and it helps you make more relatable decisions and better products. So with that, I'd like you to meet Rick. Rick is a development manager. He's not just any development manager. He's an agile, chat-ops-enabled, document-as-you-go, roadmap-smashing pro. And he's my most common character that I use in my talks. He's the master of his team's workflow, and he knows everything about how they can deliver value to his organization, not just as a team, but individually as well. He's running the health checks, managing his projects, and pushing his team as fast as they can go to deliver that value inside his organization. Now, he joined his new company from his old company where he was using the Atlassian stack. In his new job, he's bringing the Atlassian tools to his new team to make them more efficient. So he starts with Jira. And getting Jira set up for his new team is fairly straightforward. So his team are working away, they're happy, they're being efficient, never so efficient. And so other teams start hearing about this and how they're improving and want to get on board as well. So now more teams get on board. And maybe Rick adds Confluence and other tools to help keep track of other aspects of projects. But now Rick's getting a bit stressed out because he's having to manage more aspects of the system. He started with this as just a way to help his team. And now other teams are getting on board as well. So he wants to be the product champion inside the company and see it scale with use across the whole organization. But the thought of managing that is just really stressing him out. He's already handling requests for plugins, already handling requests for new users, and already managing sprints and pushing things out for those other teams. He doesn't want to have to think about scalability or service management or any of those things. Rick's moved from this being a very small part of his job to help his team to it being almost entirely his full-time job. But our research has shown that Rick is he's got a bit of help. There's more to Rick than just Rick. And what I want to talk about today is some of those personas and how we've been using those to help solve those problems. In our research, we've identified 4 administration personas. So these personas are not prescriptive. We don't expect that there's these 4 people inside your organization, but we know that there's this 4 type of administrator that live in 1 or 2 or 10 people. So you know Rick, but I want to introduce you to Helen, who is our applications administrator, Steve, who's our systems administrator, and Eric at the end, who's our Atlassian Stack administrator. You know Rick, you know his background, but we want to get him back and focused on the things that he does best and what he started out doing, which is managing his team and making them the best that they can be. As a Jira project admin, he's kicking ass with his workflows. He wants to focus on managing that and iterating on that and experimenting. As a Confluence admin, he's managing the project space. He's keeping on top of the blueprints and managing the documents for his projects. And in Bitbucket, he's the master of his repos. He's making sure that the right development style is being implemented, that he's using the right merge strategies, and that the team's permissions are set up correctly. Rick is in total control of the multiple teams that he's managing and every aspect of the team. Helen is an applications administrator. The application administrator is the product champion inside the organization. They look after every aspect of the product. They evaluate, investigate, and install plugins. They manage users. They set up new projects. Helen is in total control. She's the product owner. And she's the product champion. She knows every aspect of the system, and she's there to help Rick and his team match the requirements that they have with the applications across the enterprise. And then there's Steve, the systems administrator. Steve's keeping things running, and he's not just looking after the Atlassian products. He's doing backups, sometimes he's doing restores, but he's looking after the products as they scale. He's helping Helen and the application administrators everywhere implement bigger, faster systems and keep things running efficiently for the teams. Steve needs to be in total control, managing multiple environments, keeping a close eye on things as they run, managing the monitoring, and fixing any problems as they arise. And lastly, this is a new role that we're talking about a bit more this year at Summit, and this is the Atlassian Stack Administrator. This is someone who's looking after every Atlassian product inside your organization. They're not just managing the product itself, but they're managing the connections between it. The app links, the shared plugins, the cross-product plugins, and managing the configurations between them. Eric's in total control of the entire Atlassian stack, and he's there to help people as they get set up and transition between the different products. He's there to deliver a coordinated experience across all of them. So, these are the 4 personas that me and my team have been thinking about in the way that we've been thinking about solving problems for administrators. So whether you're a Rick as a dev manager or a team lead or a project manager, or Helen as an application manager looking after the entire application, or a Steve looking after the back end and making sure everything's running smoothly, or an Eric with the whole Atlassian stack in his hands. We've been thinking about all of these as we go. So, enough about what we've been thinking about. Let's talk about what we've actually been doing, because I mean, that's why you're here, right? Jira is 14. I have to say, working on Jira has been a bit of a dream. When I started using Jira in 2007, I really did find it one of the better workflow management and issue tracking tools around. But I think, like everyone, I committed a few workflow crimes to solve some problems, and I had problems setting up projects. But now I'm really happy to say that we've been making the administration experience at that project level much easier. So for Ricks, the dev managers and the project managers out there, we've put a lot of effort into fixing some of the small things that hinder them along the way, like implementing version configuration. So as of Jira 7.2, we brought version configuration out of the administration side and out of its independent screen, and we've added it right into the releases panel. So now inside releases, you can add, edit, move, and delete any of the releases that are available. And not only that, but you can rank and scale them as much as you need so that you can order them by priority and show that status to the rest of the team. We've done the same thing for components configuration. So that, again, we're not requiring you to move around to get to what you need to get to. You can just simply add them as you go without having to jump out of the screen. And keeping in that theme of staying out of people's way, we want the teams to be able to iterate quickly as well. And one thing that has been stopping them is looking at the way we manage sprint permissions. So we've implemented a new level of permissions inside Jira Admin that allows people to manage independent sprints as a project role. This means that you don't have to have a project administrator creating and managing the sprints for the entire project. You can delegate that responsibility to your team leads without escalating them in the administration rights. The great thing is that we've added this in the same way that we've added other permissions. So you can assign this to a group, to a project role, or to an application role. We've also been thinking about how at a project level we can continue to improve and add functionality. So for Rick and Helen, we want to make sure that we're delivering a good experience for Rick that allows him as a dev manager to be independent and autonomous without impacting on Helen's daily routine as the app admin and having to get in there and manage individual project activities, like editing workflows. And this is something that we've been getting a lot of feedback from customers about. It's an important part, an intrinsic part of the way teams work, and you hear it all the time. We really focus on the way the workflows work for teams, and we know that they're individual to a team. They can be different between two teams in the same organization, let alone across organizations. So with that research, we've brought in the ability to delegate project-level administration as part of an extended project administration in the admin console. Now Helen, as the app admin, can enable this functionality so that Rick can get in and administer the projects like normal. Instead of having to require Helen to get in and change a workflow, for example, Rick can just go into the project settings, get started, and start editing as he goes. The great thing is that we understand that a lot of admins might be adminning Jira workflows for the first time, and that is daunting. So what we've done is we've made sure that when we've done this, we're not allowing him to impact on any other aspect of the projects. And we're using the visual tools that are already in Jira so that the visual tools allow the development managers who may not have been editing this workflows before to easily do it without, well, with limited stuff-ups. The great thing is that as Rick wants to experiment with better workflows for his team and better ways of delivering value to the organization, that's now possible. Because by editing workflows and having that continually evolve as part of his team's workflow, without having to involve Helen, will increase the speed of that. And they can make more decisions faster. The other great thing is that now, with that responsibility passed down, that's not going to go across to other projects. So it won't impact another project if you edit your workflow. So, everyone can rest assured that you're only going to break your own. So what do you think? I mean, this has been something that a lot of people have been asking for, and we really want your feedback on. We know that we're just starting down a very long road. Yeah, good. We know we're starting down a really long road on this, and we know this is just a first step. But we really want to hear from you. I mean, we really value customer feedback. I don't know if you got that theme throughout Summit, but we definitely value your feedback. So go out to the Jira booth, check this out, and definitely have a chat to the Jira PMs and to the teams that are there, and talk to them about what your expectations are. Not just how it's working right now, but how you expect it to work. How this will benefit your teams, because that's what we really need to know. So, we know that a lot of customers experience pain when they upgrade. Everyone's had to do an upgrade at some point, hopefully. And we've done a lot of research, and that's something that we're hearing time and time again, that as systems scale and as instances scale, downtime becomes a really big problem. It's something that you can't handle. So I'm very happy to introduce zero downtime upgrades for Jira Data Center. This is something that was announced yesterday by Brian, and we're really happy to be bringing out. It's something we've been working on for a while, and we know that we're going to be making a lot of people happy with the fact that we don't have to bring servers down. But I don't know if you know how it works, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through how it works really quickly. So as of Jira 7.3, if you're running in a cluster configuration like you are here, you know that your load balancer is distributing across your nodes. So Steve, as the sysadmin, normally would configure the load balancer in a way that takes a node out of action so that you can take the service offline and perform an upgrade on an individual node. But at some point, you're going to have to take all of the nodes offline so that you can perform a plug-in and database upgrade on the back end. That is currently where the downtime sits. Because even if you have all of your nodes but one offline and you're serving requests, that node can't be online when you do the database upgrade. So now, we're putting that architecture and the whole cluster to work to make zero downtime work. So as traffic moves through your load balancer and heads across your cluster, you can now take one node offline and have the rest of the cluster still online, and then perform an upgrade on that node alone. Once the upgrade's complete, you just bring that node back into circulation. And that node will now start circulating traffic across the network again. And then you do this for each of the other nodes that are in your cluster, taking one off or two off at a time, performing the upgrade and bringing them back into the cluster. And at this time, all the traffic is still going through the network, even through the upgraded nodes. Once it's all upgraded, you upgrade your database and your plugins, and you bring that back online. Oh, sorry, that's an online upgrade. And once you've brought the whole cluster up to the latest version, everyone is now running on the latest Jira version without having any downtime whatsoever. The great thing about this is that it really affects planned downtime. So downtime, you can handle downtime with the scalability of Data Center, but the planned downtime of an upgrade is currently unavoidable. So Jira 7.3, it's coming soon. Please do tell us also about how that goes with your environments. So let's talk about Confluence. Now that we're helping teams be more agile in Jira, let's talk about how we're making teams better at delivering project content and some of the small improvements that we've made in administering Confluence. So we get that as you build through your projects and you iterate on your workflows, you're going to iterate on the process that helps deliver those projects, whether it's content, templates, or page structures. So our research shows that a lot of teams are producing repeatable content. So whether it's a whole project structure, a whole project space, or individual page trees. What we've introduced is the top feature that has been requested by Confluence users, which is to copy an entire page tree. So now you can get into any of the content inside Confluence and copy it and include all of the child pages. We've also made it so that you can do a grep and replace of all of the content titles so that you can entirely duplicate a project space with ease. And it runs as a background process, so you don't have to see it happen in the front end. So I think one thing with this is that as you create more content, inevitably, you're going to also want to delete content. So we're also bringing out delete page tree, which pretty much does what it says on the label. As you delete content, it shows you the incoming links, but it allows you to delete the child pages as well. Now this honors permissions, so we don't have to worry Helen, the application administrator, about Rick accidentally deleting content. He's just able to delete it and get on with what he needs to do without having to go through each individual page and deleting each individual one or dealing with orphan pages. And the best part is that as he deletes that whole tree, the whole tree moves to the trash. So if he does make a mistake, he's able to easily recover from that. We've also helped Steve, the sysadmin inside Confluence, by introducing macro usage statistics. With this, we know that one of the problems with having so many macros is that you don't know which pages they're running on or how many instances of those macros exist. So what we've done is we've created a macro page that shows each macro and how many instances that are running. So you can have a clickable link to go through each individual page and see the instances that are running for that macro. And on the right-hand side, we've got an easy tally of the number of pages that are actually using that macro. The best part about this is that now Steve the sysadmin is allowed to, or is enabled to see the impact of something like a bug in a plugin or an outage or some other problem with it. Or if he's performing an upgrade or wants to uninstall it, it's easy to see how many people are going to be affected by this and to find them. And we know that's something that, I mean, I've, as a Confluence admin, have struggled with this before as well. It's not always easy to find that. So we've put that right in the admin dashboard for users. Last year, with HipChat, we really focused on bringing integrations to the platform to integrate better with the Atlassian products and to integrate with other tools that you're using to increase your productivity in your workplace. This year, we're really focused on delivering better value in the enterprise. So pretty much for the whole team, for the app admin, for the sysadmin, and for the project admins, we're bringing in some more features at the administration level, like delegated admin. Delegated admin allows the application administrators to set new permissions on rooms so that you can have multiple administrators, and so that you can manage individual settings inside a group of rooms without having to impact on the overall administration of HipChat. So now Helen and Steve, as the sysadmin and application admin, can manage the application and the plugins, turn things off and on from a security and compliance point of view, but still give Rick, the team lead, and the dev managers the ability to be able to manage their own settings and configs. We're also improving in some other areas. We're introducing SAML and better user management in general. We're also doing email whitelisting for domains so that you can restrict down to certain user groups. And we're also giving Steve more ability to set policy around compliance. So now HipChat, you'll also be able to restrict the content that goes out in email notifications, so that instead of an entire message appearing, you can just say that a message has appeared. And as I mentioned, we're making user management a bit easier by implementing SAML in a way that still allows you to stick with traditional user directories. So as you log in, you get the options for single sign-on or to go through your standard user management. We've also built faster data exports so that if you need to, for any reason, archive for compliance requirements, it just exports really quickly. We've also introduced Data Center for HipChat. So this is bringing the distributed architecture of our data center platforms to HipChat itself. As Brian mentioned yesterday, the way HipChat is going to work in Data Center is very similar to the way the rest of our products work, by introducing additional nodes to handle additional load. This is, again, focusing on the increase of scale inside your organization and also managing routine outages of nodes. So with Data Center, the sysadmin can actually take nodes out of rotation without impacting on the end user's ability to still communicate. If 2 nodes go offline and one's still available, none of the users are really affected. As nodes come back online, they automatically rejoin the cluster, and that means that Steve's able to take these offline, perform maintenance on the rack or on the data center itself, or even on the host for the machine, and then bring it back online without impacting on the end users. Bitbucket is a personal favorite of mine. I don't have any bias at all, but no, it really is my favorite product. And we've again been really focused on how we deliver value to the administrators here. We understand that professional development teams want to work faster inside the enterprise, and that's not always a simple thing to do. So we've made a couple of changes to help meet some of the requirements there. Since we introduced branch permissions, we've made a lot of changes and a lot of improvements. We've added better controls, like setting individual permissions for branch filters, and enabled that branch filter based on a branching model as well. But now we're introducing exceptions. So branch permissions can be overruled by individual accounts or groups. So this is great if you've got a build server that has to write back to the repository, but you don't want other users to be able to. And we've done the same thing with merge strategies. We understand that every team is working different, even inside organizations, and that the merge strategies across different projects might be slightly different. Now Rick, as a project admin, can get in and set individual merge strategies that are either allowed or disallowed inside each project so that the teams can set the one that's best for them and get on with doing what they do. And as we mentioned, we've also introduced Git large file storage in the last year. Now for Steve as a sysadmin, he's able to configure that across the entire instance and set up storage that's specific to those large files and is best to handle that. But for individual projects, we wanted to give Rick the ability to be able to turn those on and off so that if a project wasn't ready to move to LFS, it didn't hinder the ability for the system to have it turned on and enabled. So now Rick can enable it for each individual project, while Steve can set it for the whole system. We also made some improvements around serving different users in different geographies. Now, this is traditionally a sysadmin thing, but it's also quite useful for the application admins in general. Imagine the scenario where you have a Sydney team, and they're working away on a local Bitbucket instance, and it's quite performant, it's running quite well. But if you introduce an Austin team who are building a specific feature or extending out the product, there's a lot of latency across the Pacific and across the West Coast between the Bitbucket instance and them. Pulls are going to be really slow, and a push is going to be even worse if you've ever used Australian internet. It's definitely bad. So what we introduced was smart mirroring, which really overcomes this problem by creating a complete replica of the content over on the Austin side. Now this is a synced clone, which means that local users can pull down content from their local instance and still push content back to the master and have that replicated across. No team's impacted by the fact that one of them's working on a remote copy. And that already supports LFS, and we're always working to improve the functionality that's in there. The best part is that we've set up some configuration to allow it to be set across all projects if you're replicating your old team across, or individual projects if you're only having small components or small projects working in a remote team. We've also introduced zero downtime backup. And zero downtime backup has been a popular request as a Bitbucket PM. And that allows you to take a complete snapshot of your Bitbucket instance, the file system, the database, and the Elasticsearch cluster without having to take the node offline. And as part of that, we've also delivered disaster recovery, which allows you to set up a complete replica as a hot spare sitting in your standby data center. So Steve, the sysadmin's able to set up the compliance requirements that he may have around the disaster recovery by using an intelligent load distributor in the middle and having the active cluster serve most of the requests. Now, if the active cluster goes offline, you can switch straight to the standby cluster without having the users interrupted by too much. And because it's kept in sync, the data is already available on the other side. So it's just another way we're really helping the sysadmins meet their compliance requirements and deliver that value back to their teams. So, before I go, because I am running out of time, I just want to talk about two things that I'm really excited about. I already mentioned that SAML's available in HipChat, and we've now brought that out for all the other, we're starting to bring that out for the other products as well. As Brian mentioned yesterday, this is in the marketplace, so you can download the plugin for Jira and start playing with it. And again, we really want to get your feedback on how that's working. We hope that it's actually going to keep people working efficiently by having them be able to just jump straight out and authenticate as they go, and having Jira automatically detect whether they're logged in. We're making it really easy to set up, so that it's not a matter of going through a big configuration exercise and messing around with configuration files like some setups. What we're trying to make it is easy enough to get through the administration screens so that you can quite quickly and simply set up SAML without having to go through those hoops. We've also got a big focus on better upgrades. We're introducing Jira Safer Startup, which will allow you to move Jira into a safe mode. So we know most startups after upgrades work, but when they don't, it can be a bit of a pain to go through and work out what went wrong. Safe mode allows you to bring the entire cluster back online without having any of the plugins enabled, so you can start troubleshooting them one at a time. So you don't have to delete your plugins directory anymore. You can just tell it to turn it off. We're also extending the Support Tools plugin, which is a really great way of getting alerts and notifications about things that may be wrong with the system, and look at the health of the system, and get a better understanding of what's going on in the logs. We're improving the overall upgrade and install experience, and improving the documentation. And one big thing we did listen to is the fact that upgrades were difficult to find and the documentation was difficult to understand. So we went through a streamlining process with Confluence to make the upgrade documentation easier to find, and to remove all the crap that you didn't care about or didn't matter for every installation, but still make it available if it does affect you. We've made the installation straightforward. And so I'd really like to hear from you guys when you go through an upgrade, if this is helping, because we plan on doing this for all the other products as well. One last thing I want to talk about is an experiment we're only running here at Summit. And that's cross-product administration. So it's something that we've heard a lot from our administrators, is how can I administer all of my Atlassian products in the same place? And this really affects that Eric persona I was talking about, where they're looking after the whole stack. So we're experimenting with some ideas around how you can manage performance, how you can get a better understanding of where things are running, what the load is across your clusters, and where there might be issues across the nodes. So this is an experiment that's running out at the design lab on the main floor. Please go and find the designers and have a chat to them and talk about it. We'd really love to get your ideas about this. This is wholly experimental at the moment. It's not a product and we're not releasing it, but we're really starting to think about this and get it. We really want to get this right. So, for the sysadmins, we've been making upgrades easier. We're making it easier to manage downtime and to meet compliance requirements. For the dev managers and team leads, we're making it easier to be autonomous away from the project roles. To make it easier to manage the teams and get focused on that workflow, and to be more independent. And for the application administrators, we're making it easier to give them the ability to empower their project teams to get on with the work that they need to do without being in the way. But it's a long road and we're not done. And I don't know if you got this, but I really want to hear from you guys. And I want you to tell me if there's things that we can do better, or if there's things that we should be focusing on. And I want to hear about the experiences that you've had with installs and upgrades, and any plugins and things like that you've had along the way, because they're the things that we can make better. And so I really want to hear about what I can do there. So you can go out to the main floor and have a talk to the Jira team, and talk to them about zero downtime upgrade, talk to them about their cross-product experiment. Come and see me afterwards. Please ask questions in the app and I'll try and answer them as well. Get on jira.atlassian.com and ask for features. I talk to customers a lot and that's generally the first thing I ask is, have you raised it on a support request or have you raised a Jira ticket for it? I really want to hear from you guys, so please do come and speak to me. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. That was really a lot of features I'm talking about. Probably looks like the top question we had. We have just a minute for questions. I'll just pull them from the app. When will delegated project administration be available in Jira Server?
So the project level administration will be in 7.3. So
and we also had a question which was, what happens when a project admin modifies a workflow that is part of a workflow scheme?
Yes, so at the moment while we go through this initial phase of the development, we're limiting the ability to edit workflows only to those that aren't shared with other projects. So we're just really kind of like containing that risk. But we do want to hear about what you expect to happen when someone does edit that later, because at some point we will bring that in. And obviously shared workflows are a big thing, so yeah.
Another popular question that was asked in probably 5 different ways is, it seems that managing users in Jira, Confluence, Bitbucket is all a little bit different, and there is a question about your plans to maybe make that a little bit simpler, maybe make it more uniform.
Yep, it's definitely things we're thinking about. SAML, we're introducing across the whole stack in a way that's consistent. And that's being done by the same teams. So traditionally we have done things a little bit differently in each of the products. But that's something we're definitely thinking about as we go, and we're trying to make sure we get right the first time, which might mean we're a bit slower in some products than others, but that's why.
Great. Well, that's all the time we have. Please give a round of applause. Thank you, Steve, for coming.
Thanks.